If you are tired of paying for those high-priced green tractors and not getting the service that you think you deserve, run over and see our friends Scott and Lance Sage at the Hobby Tractor Store. They sell these amazing quality brands.
They sell great brands like LS, TYM, Branson, Bad Boys, and other quality brands at a much better price with twice the service.
They have the hometown feel the minute you walk through their doors. Go see them at one of their 2 locations in Pleasant Grove or Roosevelt. Let them know that your friends Scott and Hillary from Surviving Life's Pickles sent you in. Welcome back to Surviving Life's Pickles. I hope you all have enjoyed the first half of Frankie's story as much as I have. I just want to say how grateful I am for all of you tuning in to our first episode in this Numb series focused on men's mental health. And without any further wait, here is part 2 with my dear friend, Frankie.
As you settled in here, it's a new town, new city, and I know you fell in love with it immediately.
I really did.
But did that start to build up again? Could you feel that emotionally as you started to make a life here?
You know, as I look back, yeah, I guess it was building up, but I don't think I knew it at the time. And again, I didn't have the tools to deal with emotional stuff. And I know my ex didn't, or maybe she had more than I did, but I think combination of the two of us just we didn't deal with our emotions like we should have. And yeah, it just compounds, you're that much more farther away from friends and family in Michigan. Now I'm in Salt Lake City, which I fell in love with, like you said. I mean, I loved it here, love it here. But then the pressure of kind of building a show. And then again, though, you immerse yourself. So I immersed myself into that, whereas probably I should have been putting effort into the marriage. And, if you don't know, you don't know. And I
Right.
know.
Right. And that ultimately ended up in divorce.
Yep.
Do you really, looking back at it, I know you've done a lot of therapy and things, but looking back now, do you feel like dumping and diving into your work and making that what you focused on was a big part of it because you weren't having that emotional connection?
Yeah, no question. I mean, that was just another, another factor in it. But yeah, in that, even up until not too long ago, just thinking that, more present than I was, and the hours that I worked, it did allow me more time. Well, I should say it allowed me to physically be at home, right? And whether that was with my wife at the time, or, with my now current wife, Tammy, and Axel, our boy. But again, like, you're there physically, but mentally, emotionally, I just wasn't there.
I just didn't know.
And that's even, like, that being said, I mean, I started doing therapy, hardcore therapy, after that first marriage ended. That was when I got into another relationship. And again, I look back and I'm like, I probably should have given it a little bit more time, right? To kind of find myself, to maybe do some of that reflection.
Did you do any therapy after the divorce? Is that when you found therapy for the first time?
Yeah, but it was when I jumped into another relationship, and I didn't like jump into it. But it happened, like, I look back and it probably happened quicker than it should have. But that was a relationship that we both had our stuff, and it's weird, man. It looked good on paper. It was one of those, but not that, wasn't from lack of trying. So that's when therapy started. It started like individual therapy, and then I was in couples therapy with her.
With the second relationship?
Yeah.
Okay.
In a week. And that was years. Like, I was in individual, like on a Tuesday, and then Thursday it was couples. And it was like that for a long time. And at the end of that relationship, it just got to the point where it just was exhausting. And it wasn't like, again, we were trying, it just wasn't working. And it was to the point where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Right. But there was a lot of growth from that, right? A lot of like personal growth where I realized where I did a lot of the things that I did. And it kind of helped in that relationship, but it was just too much. but I was doing the things of like running off. And I think I've used the analogy on the show before. And that was the therapist that I still have when I finally connected with her. And because I switched, like I had a couple of individual therapists, and then until I found the therapist that I just love.
Right. And just so everybody knows, and we've talked about it, and I'll continue to talk about it, that don't ever stop at the first one. Because
unless you click, this person is amazing and is a godsend, but yeah, don't give up. And that's what you're saying, like, because that's what we always say.
Yeah. I mean, always put it out there. If you feel after a couple sessions, hey, you know what? I'm not getting out of this. Okay, go try somebody different, because everybody functions differently. Everybody connects differently. And you have to find the person that gets you, that understands what you're going through, so that you can make the progress.
Yeah. And when you find that person, I just remember I was like, oh my gosh, this is because she helped me. It's not like she told me, she helped me connect the dots on why I'm like I am. And this was when that started, it was like a work in progress, right? Like getting under that hood. It was broken, right? Like trying to get it going, like it's still idling. And I remember her, the first thing that just this huge impact, and it was in that relationship after my first marriage, and it was just tumultuous, right? Like when we would fight, it was like she got here, I was here, she'd go up this way, I go up this way, and it was just not productive. And then, but ultimately, I would end up leaving
because you just don't want to deal with it anymore.
That's all I knew. And she told me, she said, and she told me, like, this is where it's coming from. It helped me connect the dots. So then I realized, like, oh my gosh, it's the dynamic when I was young, my older brother. And she said, so what you were doing when you were 5, like when you couldn't mentally hang, emotionally hang, physically hang with your brother, when it was getting bad, you would run out of the room, run out of the house. And I was like, yeah. She said, so what you're doing now is essentially the same thing. You're leaving, right? Whether that's leaving a restaurant, leaving her house, or, storming out of your house. She said, so that raft that served you, that's the only tool you had when you were 5 or 6, right? And you were able to do and get away. It worked. Now you're an adult. You've got that raft, and you're essentially dragging it through the woods. It doesn't serve you anymore. You need something new. Like, you can't do this. So when she said that was like so that's when I started like, oh my gosh. And then you start reflecting on, your past relationships, thinking about, 18-year-old Frankie, when I told my girlfriend, Shelly, like, hey, here's what I'm doing. Are you excited for me? I'm leaving. I'm breaking up essentially I'm breaking up with us. Are you excited that I'm going down to Fort Myers to chase my dream?
You'd be happy for it.
Yeah. Like, why are you upset? Right. So, I didn't get any of that until that first, where she helped me connect some of those dots, and like that big light bulb went off. But that was when I really started to get into, holy shit, we have, until you start like holding yourself accountable. And, it's not, that's the thing. Like some people in therapy, maybe for years you're in therapy and it's like, it's my spouse. It's like, maybe there's some stuff with your spouse, but you got stuff in it too. Until you can look in and go, hey man, and look within and say, geez, this is causing this, right? Maybe your spouse is this way, but maybe you're helping get them to this point. And it's just this whole thing. So you got to own some stuff. And it was amazing to me and fascinating. And I loved it, because it's like, where has this been all my life? That's kind of how I felt. And that was like mid-30s. But again, it's not like I was cured or fixed. It took years of going to therapy until one day she said, and again, not that I'm completely cured or healed, but she was like, I think our time here is done, unless you need me in the future, like for a tune-up. But that's what I'll do from time to time. And we've since gone, like Tammy and I, and she was a little hesitant because she's like, well, you've got a rapport with her, and I'm afraid of, and like, I totally get that. And if you feel that there's some kind of bias with it, then we'll find a couples therapist that it's neutral. But I'm just saying that she is so professional, and I just have long story short, with that, Tammy fell in love with her. Good. And we've gone a couple of times as a couple, and I'll still every once in a while, and like I did right before my trip that I took, where I texted her and was like, hey, I need to see you and talk to you. And I've had those little tune-up sessions with her. And it's so important, though, to have somebody to go back to and speak to your point. Like therapy, whatever, if it's a counselor or whatever, but it's so important to talk to somebody that is well-versed in that, more than
more than just a friend. You need somebody that understands how the mind works, how the body can take it.
Somebody's studied it.
Right. So you've worked, through the 30s, you've gone through your divorce, you've had a relationship, you've started therapy. And then, you meet Tammy, you guys get married, and you feel like, and even your therapist has felt like, hey, you are doing a lot better. But I'm trying to figure out the best way to go about this is, through all that, did you still feel there was something missing? Do you still feel that there wasn't quite a connection going on at this point, or did you feel really good?
No, I felt a lot better, but I think I was still fooling myself. And then as I look back, I was chemically numbing myself, but at the time I didn't. Yeah, it's not numbing to me. I was doing what I needed to do to get through the night to sleep, and that was my sleep cocktail.
Yeah, so tell us about that and how long you took that.
So that was so when I started in Jacksonville, actually, if you want to get down to it, like when I first started in April, I'm trying to think. So it was April of, when was it? 90. Well, when I first started radio, so that would have been 1990. That's when my effed up sleep schedule started, because I was doing overnights, right?
All over the place.
Moving down to Fort Myers, same thing. I would do overnights. I would do whatever they needed. Started off with a swing shift. So I would do like 2 to 6. Morning girl would come in. She'd do her shift. I would do the midday guy show from 10 to 2. I'd sleep on the conference floor. I was just, whatever they had, I was doing. So my sleep schedule, that crazy sleep schedule, started literally when I started in the business, and that was in 1990. But then in 93, when I started at that Jacksonville station, when I'm doing overnights, and then that's when it started where I'm getting up in the middle of the night, for the whole time until I got fired in 2023 when we got fired. Yeah. So it was, I don't know,
really, it's about 25 years, essentially.
30 years of from 93, when I was hired in April of 93 to April of 2023, 30 years of that, just basically getting up in the middle of the night and at an effed up schedule.
So during that time, you had to find a way to go to sleep because you could shut your mind down. And so you started taking this sleep cocktail.
So and I did it on my own for the longest time. But when I started where I couldn't anymore, I looked to my doctor. He put me on Ambien. So started that. And then, that doesn't work as well. Then you start adding things to it. So at the very end, before we were let go, I was taking, it was Ambien, it was Klonopin, which is an anxiety med, and I was prescribed that years ago. I wasn't taking it every day. As a matter of fact, I held on to that, and I would go into the doctor, and he would be like, "How's your Klonopin?" Like, that's fine. I don't take it that often until the last two years at the radio station. It got so bad and toxic that was in every day. Okay. So I started taking that every day. I was doing the THC/CBD edibles at night
to help calm and close that anxiety off.
Right. So this is all at night that I was taking my sleep cocktail. And then I took something that was, it starts with I think it's hydroxyzine or something it's an antihistamine. One of the side effects is it causes drowsiness. So that was probably the safest thing that I'm taking. Maybe not the safest, but one of the safest things that I'm taking right now. But the other stuff, I could have very easily gone to sleep and not woken up.
Right. Well, and on top of that, I remember you saying you were taking tramadol for a long time as well for a different reason.
Right. And that was kind of a couple times, maybe 2 times a week. So that was from something else that I dealt with. Years ago, I had a bad reaction to an antibiotic, and they didn't know what it was for a year and 4 months. It was all these studies and doctors and specialists. It turned out to be this antibiotic that I'd been on for 8 years for my dermatologist, who kept prescribing it to me, this minocycline, that I found out what my body just started rejecting it. And it mimicked these autoimmune diseases, and they thought maybe I had cancer. It was crazy. So with that, I had some residual effects of it. And that is this arthritic pain. So that's when the tramadol was prescribed.
So you were taking that for that reoccurring pain.
Yeah.
Why he prescribed that.
Yeah. Okay. And it wasn't a daily thing. but I was addicted to it full on because I took it, like I said, maybe 2-3 times a week and didn't realize
what it was doing
and how addictive. Yeah. I mean, I was addicted and to all of this stuff. So that was a good portion. I mean, all that stuff, that's pre-Tammy, my wife now, with the exception of a couple of other things. But the Ambien, Tramadol, well, that was right when Tammy and I were getting together. So that was early in our relationship. But all the other addictive stuff, I mean, that was me not realizing that I need this stuff to shut down. I need this stuff for the pain, but I'm numbing myself, essentially, is what I was doing.
You just weren't feeling, because I mean, you during that last 2 years, and I mean, now we're going to just kind of talk about that last couple of years, and you say it was how toxic it was. It was so toxic at your work, you didn't want to feel. I mean, it was probably, you talk about how you felt you were angry before. I would imagine that anger started to really build up inside you now, with everything that started going on.
Yeah. It wasn't good and Jess and I talk about this a lot because, we were right there together with this whole thing, and she had her stuff going on at home. And, like you're basically just trying to keep your head above water at work. Right. And then at home, you're just a shell of the person. You're in survival mode.
Everything's gone.
Yeah.
By the time you get home.
Yeah. Exactly. And then, yeah, it's just in that anger again. I mean, I knew I had tools, but as things start stacking up towards the end of our radio career, you're just like you're treading water. That's it. You're just trying not to drown. And it's hard to do anything other than like, you're just constantly like, you're worried about everything. It's work stuff.
Because, I mean, yeah, it's your livelihood. Yeah. And you got to wait. Now you have Axel, you have Tammy at home. You're trying to take care of them, make sure that, that they have a house and we got my food.
I'll be honest here. And yeah, just all that stuff,
And so, but you're just numb to everything else because you just don't know how to deal with it at this point. And so really just emotions were non-existent. It sounds like during that time, like you didn't have time. You couldn't feel emotions.
Yeah. And I think the emotions that I had was still, I think it was better at, again, like Tammy and I, we were in a good spot. And then, there were some rough times where it's like I look back, a lot of it was me. I just didn't know how to deal with things. I think I was dealing with it better than I was in relationship prior, and definitely dealing with it better in the relationship before that. Right. But it's still just not clicking.
Yeah. How it worked.
Like, there's certain tools and I could reach down and use them, but sometimes and then towards that couple of years at the end of the radio thing, it just was, yeah. I mean, you look back and it's like, I don't even know. We were just in a whirlwind. Yeah. I mean, you're just like in a windstorm all the time. That's what it felt like.
So April happens in 2023. Mm-hmm. You guys get fired, let go.
Yeah.
I love how Axel says, Dad, they just fired you.
Yeah. That's when I came home and you could see it on my face. Yeah. And he's like, Dad, what happened? And I told him, I said, Jess and I got fired. And he goes, and the first thing out of his mouth is, why did you get fired?
And I mean, he can't understand it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the way he asked it, like but basically what I took from it, and that's not, I don't think what he meant, and maybe he did mean it, but I took like, what did you do? That's what I heard. Like, right. What did you do to get fired? And I kind of explained to him what they said to us, and it was due to economic reasons. But the way they did it is like, we've gone off like right. forever about it on the show, but it was the way they did it that was traumatic and hurtful and all that. And yeah, it was like, that was a different, I mean, they released us. We knew deep down that it was a good thing, but at the same time, you're in this fog for a while. Like all of a sudden, boom, it's gone. They took it away. We weren't allowed to say goodbye. And it was in an instant, like they fired me in 8 minutes. They walked me out and they separated us, and then they brought Jess in, and then probably 8 minutes later, she's gone. So, I mean, it was that quick. So that was, and even prior to that, like I felt like, because we kind of knew that this probably was coming, but we just didn't think that they would do it the way they did it. So, I mean, you look back, and I think we put it out in the universe. We were like, we didn't say this to them. We might have actually said it to them now that I think about it. I don't know. Like, if you want to get rid of us, get rid of us. Like, because they were tormenting us. I mean, it really was. It was just emotional abuse. It was it was abusive in every sense of the word, with the exception of physical abuse.
Right.
It was abuse. And we didn't like what we did at the very end. And we'd say that. And I remember saying it years ago, like the day I say that I don't like what I'm doing for a living, I'm hanging up the headphones. Well, that's a lot easier said than done when you've got a mortgage and a family and people that depend on you, right? And they did us a favor with it. Ultimately, they did.
So, I mean, after you get, like you said, you got let go, and it takes a couple of weeks to process for sure. But during that time when you're processing, all of a sudden, did you start to feel things that you hadn't felt for a while? Because I've heard you talk about all of a sudden you're sleepy.
Yeah. And my body, boy, did it respond like immediately.
Yeah.
It responded immediately. And I was like, holy shit, this is what everybody's been talking about. This thing. This is amazing. But at the time I'm still taking my stuff, right? But you're getting
more than 5 hours of sleep.
Yeah, and it was 5 would have been great. I was burning the candle even at the very end, even when I was getting more sleep than I should have. When I saw that neurologist, and I had this whole weird thing that this neurologist told me a few years prior to that, like, what you've been doing for so long, it's been working, your body is fine with it, and now it's not, and you're essentially killing yourself. And he told me, he's like, you're gonna die at a young age if you don't start getting more sleep like tonight. And I went home. And instead of going to bed at 11 or 11:30 like I'd done for years, and then getting up at 3:05, and that wasn't even good sleep. It was like broken, and like I started tracking my sleep. I started going to bed at 9, and that was like right out of the chute. He like scared me so much, and then I even felt it then, like, I felt my body even kind of repairing itself then, but I still wasn't getting. That's when I started tracking it, and it was not good sleep. So I was, getting the sleep, but it was like I would have killed for 5 hours. It was probably 2, maybe 3 of like decent sleep, and then the rest was all this really light blue stuff. You know what I mean?
So, but I mean, now you're sleeping.
Sleeping.
Your body's responding. You're starting to feel things a little bit differently.
It was, and again, yeah. So we're, you got these emotions that you're starting to kind of like, holy shit, like we were let go, and you're still kind of going through that, and this fog is still there, but it's slowly starting to settle. And you're starting to see things like, we don't know what's going to happen. We decide, shortly after that, we're going to do the podcast. We start recording like a month after we were fired. So we start putting him in the can. We're not allowed to release him.
But that was therapeutic in itself, right?
Yeah, it truly was. And there's so many things with that. And again, we knew that they did us a favor. It just took us a little bit to see like how much of a favor it was. But that dust starts to settle. You start to see clearly, and you're like, oh. And we started, like I said, recording. They wouldn't let us release them because we were still kind of under this severance thing, and they kept us, and it was all by design. They said, kind of quiet. Yeah. They're like, you're not going to, if you do this, you're going to hinder your severance. And so they kept us under lock and key and whatever. So we're recording stuff though. And I know at first, like Jess is, and I'm like, no, we got to be consistent with it. We started off once a week. And then I'm like, let's do two times a week. And I said, we'll just record them. We'll record them. We'll get them in the can. It's going to be like an audible diary, like just what we're feeling. And she says, like, even now to this day, like, thanks for pushing me because it helped us. It was therapeutic, and we were processing together, and we're thankful and blessed to have each other in that sense that we were both in it together, and we were putting the stuff in the can. We're recording it. And it's this up and down, like we're, and a lot of it's us. We're talking about what had happened, but it's like when you're there for so long, right? And you're loyal to this company, and then they're not loyal in return, and they walk you out like a criminal. Man, that stinks.
And it's grief. I mean, we talked about losing a job that you've done for 20 plus years is really just like losing a relationship. You lose friends, you lose your patterns, everything you do during the day is gone.
Yeah. And listeners, and that going back to the start of the show here, it's like that symbiotic relationship. It's just gone. Yeah. And we weren't even allowed to communicate through social media. So we were doing that incognito, trying to do these, and they were watching us, like the company, they were, so it's like, oh my gosh, really? Like, you fired us. Like, you're really doing this? So, but it was truly though, like, every week. And then, like I said, then we were doing a couple episodes a week, and that was so therapeutic. And still not knowing, I mean, the fear of the unknown was still there. Like, we don't know we don't know how to do a podcast other than recording this stuff. As far as the business aspect, and even logistically, we don't know what we're doing, but we're going to figure it out. In the meantime, and I remember, like, looking back, even though I had all this stuff, I mean, I still felt like my world was imploding, but I felt like, if this makes sense, like it was opening up at the same time, but I still felt like I felt dismal, right? And like I needed something, and that's where the ayahuasca came in.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, let's talk about that, because all of a sudden you needed a change, and the universe spoke to you through a friend, wasn't it?
Yeah. So this friend, and this happened, so when he told me about it, and it was another friend that it had been on my radar, not really, I had known about it like a lot of people do. It was a guy that I grew up with in Michigan and Detroit, and we've known each other since we were like 4. And he talked about, like, I went back to Detroit. My dad was getting heart surgery. This is years ago. And we reconnected, and he told me about what he had been doing. He'd gone down to Peru a couple of times for an ayahuasca ceremony, and how it helped him, and how it's, you know, at that point I'd been reading things about it and hearing things, how it's literally years of therapy in a night or two.
Right.
And right along the lines with like ketamine therapy or psilocybins, if you do it in a controlled setting, you know, it's so beneficial, and they can quantify it. They can see what it does to your brain.
Yeah.
Right. And he told me about it, and I was like, hey man, he said to me, do you want to do it? I was like, I don't. And at that point in my life, and I probably should have, but I didn't think I had anything, right? Again, that's the emotions that I didn't realize.
You didn't realize they weren't there.
Yeah. I'm fine. You know, I'm fine. I'm just suppressing. I'm pushing it down. So I was like, dude, more power to you. That's awesome that it's working for you. But no, I don't think I need to do that. And then all of a sudden, fast forward to right before we were let go. And like I said, the last couple of years was so bad and so toxic, and just everything. It felt like my world was imploding. I had a friend say, hey, we're getting ready to do the ceremony with ayahuasca coming up in May. And that was the May after the April that we were fired. And I was like, dude, I am so intrigued. I said, I want to know when you do this. I said, I'd heard about it. A buddy of mine told me about it. I said, I think I might want to do it. And then all of a sudden, you know, a couple months go by, April 3rd happens, we get fired. And I'm obviously in communication with this friend. He's a good friend, and they're getting ready to do their thing in May. And he tells me about it, and I'm like, I'm in. I want to do this, because they were getting ready to do another ceremony coming up in October of 2023.
Okay.
So I was like, I am down.
So you didn't do the one in May? No, you did the one in October.
In October.
Okay.
And I knew, though, because of going back to all of that stuff that I was taking, all the stuff that I knew I was addicted to. And I didn't know that I was addicted to like the tramadol. I thought I was going to be more having a problem to get, the problem would be more so with Ambien. We're getting rid of that. So I started to, because, you know, with ayahuasca, and this isn't, you know, for everybody, but it was something that had intrigued me. And I just felt like like you said, I needed something. I felt like with the loss of the job, with my wife, a couple years prior, or maybe it was a year prior. It was like sometime before that, we got the news that she has early onset Parkinson's. So my dad died back in 2016, you know, had just a lot of stuff, right? My mom's getting older,
and everything with your brother too. You were losing your brother and
we lost my brother-in-law in 20, just a lot of stuff, right? A lot of stuff that it's life. People have stuff, right? Your stuff. It's not like my stuff's any different, but I just felt like there was something that I needed something. I didn't know what it was. That's all of a sudden is boom, right there on my radar. And I felt something inside me like, this is what you need, right? This is going to be something that's going to benefit. I didn't know what it was. I mean, I knew a little bit about it, but I didn't know what I'm getting into. So I start prepping for this way before I'm supposed to, because I knew that it's going to be harder for me because of all the stuff that I'm taking, because you can't be taking anything.
Completely, no medications at all.
None. The only thing that I was allowed to, and I didn't take it that last week, and then realized that I could, was my blood pressure met. They were like, this is the only thing that we found out doesn't conflict with the ayahuasca. So you can take that. And then I forgot to take it like the last couple of nights. And then they were literally checking my blood pressure both nights just to make sure, which the shamans with this and just the whole experience for me and for the people that I did it with, and we all had different experiences, but was truly a transformation for me, no question. But it was a lot. It was really hard. The preparation, the eating thing, cleaning that up wasn't difficult. It was the kicking, the stuff that I needed to kick. And I didn't realize until I'm like in it. And one of the things that I had to stop taking was the tramadol. And that was a part of this prep journey that it hit me so hard, and I didn't make the connection until after the fact that I had about 4 or 5 days of where I was and I remember when it hit, it hit me. It started like the day before this, but I was actually coming down from a hike. It was the Mildy North Trail or Mildy Trail at Big Cottonwood. I was coming down. That's kind of my
go-to.
Yeah. Nature's Prozac, right? It's like my thing. I'm not religious. I'm spiritual. And that's where I connect to Mother Nature and just think. And I'm able to, it's very therapeutic is hiking. So I remember going up, and then as I'm coming down, like going up, I felt something, and I felt something the day before that I never, not that I wasn't depressed ever in my life. I've been depressed, been down, but I never had this feeling of darkness. So it was like the Saturday prior, it kind of came in with, I was like, whoa, what was that? Right. Or that Friday prior. Cause the Saturday I went on that hike, and as I'm coming down, this wall of, I don't even know, hopelessness, helplessness had hit me. And I was like, whoa, and then that was when it started. And that was like on a Sunday or Saturday. And then that Sunday we get a phone call from my wife's parents, and their dog essentially fell over and had a stroke, and that led into having to put him down. And I stayed with Axel because I just this whole helplessness and hopelessness, I was hurting at this point. Now I'm like, and I know that didn't help, like the timing of their dog, and we had to have somebody go to their house and put it down. And that was the start of it. Like I was laying there on the floor playing with Axel. Like I hurt so hard, like so much. And he was he had no idea. Like, he's like, just play with me. I want you to play with the Legos. And, that usually meant me putting together the Legos and him doing something else. But he kept pushing me, like, let's play this card game. Let's do this. And then it just got worse and worse. And I did share it with Tammy, but I don't think I know she didn't get how bad it was, right, until it was like a little bit after that. She's like, I had no idea what you were telling me. And I wasn't having I don't want to, not that there's anything wrong with it, but my brain wasn't at the point where I was thinking about how to take my life, but it felt like pretty close to that. So I wasn't thinking about it, but I felt like I felt dark, and I didn't know what.
You essentially went into full withdrawal.
Right. And I didn't know that until after the fact. And that's exactly, I think, what it was. But so at that point, I'm working very closely with the shamans, and they're in a different state. And, we're either doing kind of like these FaceTime sessions on the phone, we're texting, we're very like communicative like the whole time. And with things that I'm taking, things that I'm getting off of, and they didn't know like a whole lot about tramadol because they're working with like a pharmacologist who knew, and then he told them, and I didn't know. I knew it's a pain pill. That's the extent of it. I knew it's a pain pill that, like, when you take it, it's not like I have to worry about, don't operate a high-low, don't operate heavy machinery. It's not like
very low dose.
Yeah, it's not like one of those pain pills where when I would take it, but it is very addictive. I think it mirrors like an opioid. They said it's got those qualities. So I don't think it falls into that, but it has the qualities, like as far as what it does to your brain. And it's an SSRI, is that right?
Right. Well, and
that's what it's called?
That's the same stuff, that I was addicted to. You can buy over the counter, which is Kratom.
Okay,
that's the exact same effects that tramadol gives you.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
It's exactly the same.
Oh,
So
I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
So that whole thing, and when they told me how, and this is after I'm gone through, like what you had said, and I didn't realize I'm going through withdrawals. And it was about 4 or 5 days where it was really, really dark. And I'm still in communication with the shamans, and they said, hey, look, and this felt good, but at the same time, I was like, I'm still going to push forward with this. But they said, this is on your radar. You want to do this, you're going to do it, but maybe October isn't for you, maybe because we're going to come back in the next year and we'll do it again. So maybe you wait. And I said, I appreciate that, because that does take some of the pressure off. I said, but I've come this far, because at that point, when I had that conversation, I felt like I was out of that hole for a bit, but I didn't know if it was going to come back, because I'd never experienced it before. And I'm like, I don't know if this is a start to something,
right?
Like depression, like the depression that you hear about that leads into like suicidal thoughts, right? I didn't know. And then I kind of made the connection that, I probably was going through withdrawals. But I remember saying, when they said that to me, and then I told that to my wife, and I was full on expecting her to say, I don't want you to keep going. And she said to me, she said, I think you need to push through it and keep going, because I think this is really going to benefit you. And I said, thank you, because that's what I wanted to hear. And this is what I'm going to do. And I told them, I said, look, if it gets to a point where maybe that, that period of the darkness, it comes back and I feel that I don't want to do it, I'm going to pull the plug and I'll do it again in the future. And I felt better and better, right, as I got through that tramadol, and then kind of getting rid of some of the other stuff. It was bad, but it wasn't nearly as bad as the tramadol withdrawal thing. And then the Ambien wasn't, it was bad, but it wasn't. I started before I was even supposed to. Again, I was weaning myself. I did that like over a matter of like a few weeks, right? Literally was chipping away at the one pill that I would take until I got down towards the end. And then it was like right before I went for that Friday and Saturday night, that week, you're not supposed to have anything in your system, or maybe it's like a few days, but I didn't have anything in my system for that week. But I was, the week prior, is just taking like a little powder to get in my fix or whatever. So I really truly weaned myself off of that. But the heart addiction was more that tramadol than anything.
So, you get through this, you've gone through the withdrawals, which anybody who's been through, it is one of the most miserable mental experiences. Sometimes it can be very physical too, depending on what it is.
Yeah.
You've made it through this. You've now done this ayahuasca trip and treatment, over a weekend.
Yep. It was a Friday and Saturday night.
And after coming out of that, what did the next week look like? Like mentally, what was happening to you? What emotions did you start to notice you were feeling that you didn't really know that possibly were there before?
So I think going back to that, like leading up to that, since we were fired, I was getting little glimpses of things that I never knew I was missing. And that is, getting up in the morning and opening up the windows, making the bed, making Axel's lunch, or when my wife and I walk him to school, these little
bits of enjoyment.
Yeah. And things that just the truly like important things, right? Wow, this is kind of what life's all about, and who knew? But I still was, going through that whatever, just a lot of change. So I had those little glimpses leading up to the ayahuasca. So to answer your question, that Sunday morning, I'm driving home from that experience with another friend, and we both rode up, to the other friend's house together. So we're driving, and it's a Sunday morning, and I felt like, and the crazy thing is, like, both of those nights, you're not getting like a lot of sleep. You get a little bit of sleep after, because you're up pretty much the whole night. You have no concept of time, because you don't have like your phone or anything. You don't know what time it is, but it's late. And so I should be tired, but I'm not. And I truly felt like, with what I took away from both of those nights, that I got a new lease on life. And I felt that. And it felt like, and like with that, like ayahuasca or ketamine, or if you're doing the, psilocybins, mushrooms, or whatever in a controlled setting, you've got like a window in your brain. And I've heard the analogy, it's like, and I don't know what to what, like I think ayahuasca is like a month or something, like you have, if you've got the same thing with ketamine, I don't know what it is there, but you have a window of time to implement good habits, right? So whatever your takeaway is from your experience, you have to, and the analogy that I heard is like when you're tilling the soil and you put seeds in, right? You have to water that.
You got to water it, take care of it, nurture it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, then you're going to be right back where you were before. So if you're not trying to actively implement good traits or thoughts or just practices, right, then you're going to be right back to where you were.
Yeah.
So I had, this chicken scratch, but both nights, it was by candlelight, little plastic candles that we had all around kind of the area where the ceremony took place, jotting down notes, right? Just thoughts and all that stuff. So that Sunday morning, driving home, my buddy's driving, text my wife. She's like, we're getting ready to run some errands. I'm like, that's awesome. I'm going to come home and walk Rusty. It was a sunny day. And that's our dog. And I said, so when you guys get back, let's go to dinner. I can't wait to tell you. I mean, I was so excited. So excited. One of the things she said, she said something about tickets to Italy, and she brought that up on that Friday before the ceremony. The only thing that was on my brain was that ceremony, like prepping for it. And like I had a little bit of reservations and anxiety, but for the most part, I was like 70% excited, knew that this is going to benefit me, but I was still thinking about it, right? Like I'm excited, anticipation that is like building up. So she mentioned this 3 tickets that were really cheap to Italy, and it was like in one ear and out the other. But then I brought up and I said, what did you were saying something about tickets that so-and-so had for Italy. And she's like, yeah, so-and-so has these tickets and they're $550 a piece. And there's 3 of them that she has. And it's from Salt Lake to Rome. And then it's from a tour group. You're not a part of the tour. It was just tickets that this tour group had. And then if they don't get rid of them, they take the hit on, right? So they need to get rid of these 3 tickets. But the problem is they're it was like 9 days away. And it was like on the 2nd of November to like the 13th. So it was one of those. And I said, so what now with these tickets? And she told me about it. And I said, well, reach out to her and see if they're still available. A couple seconds later, she responds. She goes, yeah, she still has them. And I was like, huh. So old Frankie would have been like, well, it's Europe. We got to plan for months on that, and then maybe like, I know they're cheap, but it's like they're still expensive and that kind of thing, right? I was like, and I thought to myself, because one of the things that I took away from it, it might sound cliche, but whether it was a spirit guide or a higher voice, but it was, and I had a lot of things both nights and some tensions that I went in with. And one of the things that was said was like, you're hanging out up here in the future for stuff that is, beyond your control. 99% of the things that you're worried about most likely aren't going to happen, but you're hanging out here. You need to be here, not back here, but here. Present. Yeah. And like what's important is right in front of you, and you're missing out because you're worrying, and like we all do, right? You worry about things that are out of your control. The only thing that's within your control is right here, and that's you being present. Because even that is right. You can't control other people, but you being present and appreciative and just in the now. And so that came to me like, holy shit, this is the universe saying, put your money where your mouth is. This is a chance for you to
experience life.
Yeah. And so I said to Tammy, I said, okay, the podcast, because at that point, we were planning on launching January 2nd of the following year, in that 2024. And the stuff that we're doing behind the scenes, we were getting ready to December 1st go kind of public with it, like what we're doing with our listeners. So all this stuff, we have a little time, and Tammy had time at her job. And I said, and sure, we're trying to hunker down and batten down the hatches with our finances. I said, but you know what? If we don't do this, we're going to regret it. And Axel was 7 at the time. I'm like, and I know it might seem like he's too young, but I think he's going to appreciate this. Let's just do it. Let's take this trip. And I'll tell you what, we did it. And it was one of the best trips that we've ever had. The following year, we decided to dip into savings. We went on another vacation. We didn't get the same deal, obviously, but we had points where we paid for one ticket and then had to pay full price for the other tickets. And the time of year that we went, it's cheaper. The Airbnbs are much more plentiful because you're going in November as opposed to, you don't want to do Europe in the summertime. No, way too busy, expensive. So we did it again, but that helped me like really set that tone of we don't know what, and especially like, with just everything, you don't know what next year, next week. And I know it sounds cliche, but we don't know what the next day is going to bring us.
Right.
And even starting off with the podcast and that fatality on I-15. I mean,
They didn't know that was
yeah, in somebody's life. And I always think that when I see an accident and you hear that's a fatality, or even if you don't, just because I mean, somebody's life could change even if they do make it through it. Someone's life, when I see an accident, is changed, especially if it's a fatality. But not just someone, people's lives literally changed with an accident. I always think of that. I'm always aware of that. Like your mortality, man, it's your life is fragile.
And before, you didn't probably think about that as much. No, not even close.
Nope. I didn't even, I was just kind of, we were just in survival mode, man. You're just trying to tread water. And so with that, it was amazing. And I truly felt like this is the universe saying, here you go. And I constantly went back to the notes, my little journal thing of what I took away from both of those nights. And every morning when I got up and consciously would say things out loud in my head, I was just constantly trying to plant those new good habits. Right. And I feel like I'm still in a really, really good place where, not that I don't, I'm human. So sometimes you get pissy or whatever, something sets you off, but I don't get set off as quickly. I get through it a lot quicker, right? I feel whatever it is. If I'm pissed about something, I'm not hanging on to shit like I used to.
Just move through it.
Yeah, because it's not, I mean, it truly, at the end of the day, like, and especially after Tammy got her diagnosis, it's like, it's not worth it. And not that we don't get into it every once in a while, but it's not like back in the day where, a lot of that was me.
But how about on the other end then? I mean, are you feeling a better connection with Tammy and Axel like that you didn't feel before?
Absolutely. And I hope it's mutual, but I do. I feel, and not that, again, I try, because sometimes I'm like, I'm doing this or whatever. And Axel's like, let's play street hockey. I'm like, dude, I got to do this. And I'll say, give me 30 minutes. I need to and then we'll go down. I promise. And we'll do that. And sometimes I'm like, okay, let me just do this one thing and then we'll go down, and then I'll do it a little later. Cause that's kind of the beauty of what we're doing now, is it allows us the time
to spend the time with people you love.
Yeah. And then I can do what I need to do at different times, like when he's at school or whatever. And yeah, it's, and even with like Jess on the show, I think, and she said this, I feel there's a, because we're talking now. Like before it was, we were in this machine of you do a break, and at the very end, it was a 90-second break per management. You can't talk any more than 90 seconds. We're not connecting with listeners in 90 seconds. We're not connecting with each other in 90 seconds. I mean, there's no connection anywhere.
No, your guys' relationship, even on air, has got so much stronger and deeper. You can tell just the way you guys communicate. And, a lot of it is just because now you're more open. Now you're okay. You're okay to feel the bad. You're okay to feel the good.
Yeah.
You want to.
Yeah.
Before it was, we got to work. We don't need to do this. Right.
Yeah. I didn't have and I hate the stupid corporate term, but the bandwidth before. I didn't have the bandwidth that I have now. And I was just talking to a friend about this today. I don't take any of the stuff anymore. I mean, honest to God, I don't take any of it, and I don't miss any of it. And I still have it. I was going to get rid of it because I thought, kind of like an alcoholic, get rid of the booze. Like, you don't need it in the house or whatever. You don't want to have the temptation, the relapse. I was going to do that. I was going to give it to a friend. And then I thought, you know what? Because every time I'd open the drawer, it didn't have an effect on me other than I'd flip it off. Like, I don't need you anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now it's still there, and I'll probably get rid of it, but it's almost like when I see it, and then it's not like I look for it, but if I'm looking for something else, I'm like, oh yeah, there's the Ambien. Oh my gosh, look at that. That's a full bottle of Klonopin. And there's this and this. And it's like, all I take is, and I've been out of it for a bit, so I don't even take the magnesium like I should, and I know, but I need to replenish on that. But lemon balm tea with my wife, Tammy, we have that's our sleep cocktail. It's lemon balm tea with valerian root and
magnesium.
Yeah. And that's it. And some nights are better than others, but even on my bad nights, I'm still getting better sleep than what I was on that sleep cocktail. And just thankful and grateful for it took all of that, that experience of what had happened to us, the ayahuasca thing, and I'm just in a better spot, I think, especially with people that need me, you know, like what Tammy, we're dealing with that. And just, you know, with aging parents, you know, not that we don't have our days, because like right now our mom's in the hospital. Like, you know, it's like we've got, my mom was in the, you know, so you've got aging parents, and that's tough. But I just feel like I am able now to be there mentally and emotionally and physically, whereas before, I don't think I really was.
Yeah, before physically you were there, that was about it.
I was a shell, you know, shell of a person.
So, I mean, wrap this up. You've been through a lot through your life. You've changed a lot. You've evolved. I mean, even I remember just listening to you in your early radio years in Salt Lake here, and your demeanor is a lot different than it is now.
Yeah.
You're just more emotional. You're more human. I mean, I guess is the best way to put it.
I think it became more emotional when we had Axel. Like,
And that helps too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I know in the last little bit, though, there's no question much. And we've always been vulnerable, but I think I've really just everything in the last little bit, the last couple of years. I don't know.
There's just no reason not to share it anymore, right? I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, it is who you are.
Yeah.
And that's what's beautiful. So as we're finishing this up, what message would you share with any other men, or even with those men's wives that are listening right now, that maybe as you're talking, feel like, oh, maybe that's kind of me? Like, what would the message you want to share with them?
I would say if you're, because this is like important, and you know, with everything that I'm talking about in the last few years, it's important to, and I think it's harder for dudes, especially as you're older. It's hard to find friends, and not that I haven't had friends, but the friends that I have in my life in the last few years are quality friends. Not that he didn't have quality friends before,
Right.
but it's a different dynamic, and we're all fathers, we're all husbands, and we're all pretty vulnerable. And with each of these friends that I'm thinking about that are in my life, the stuff that we're talking about, I mean, it's this and then some. And we talk about, you know, like husband fails, parent fails, stuff that, I mean, we're just vulnerable. And I think that's important. I think it's important to find, and it's hard. I know, man. I know, because it's like with guys, it's hard to open up, and then it might sound weak to find another guy, right? And I don't know if it probably sounds pretty foreign, but I think it's so important. And I don't know what that looks like for you, but I think it's so important to find people that, like, you want to, it's because you can't do it like this. You can't be closed off and, you know,
Happy.
Yeah. I'm glad. I feel, you know, in my 50s, because I'm 53, I feel blessed to have what had happened to me, and me to really find what I found now, and to be, I'm extremely open. Whereas I know people that are in their 60s and their 70s, and people's parents and grandparents that never found that. And it's just, and you know, it's a lonely life. And I know from firsthand experience, it can be isolating. You're there, you know, you might be with somebody, but you're still on an island, you know, if you're that kind of a person. Because I have been that person, you know, with people, without people. I've been on an island, right? And it's not a good life. It's not a healthy life. And especially if you have people around you, it affects everybody. It affects everyone, your kids, affects your coworkers, it affects your spouse, everybody, you name it. Whoever you have any type of a dealing with, it affects them. And why go through life like that if you didn't have to? And it's just so try to find somebody, even if it's one person.
I'll follow that up with, I mean, for me, it was finding the I Love You Bro group.
Yeah.
It was finding Joe. And those guys are my guys, because we talk about this stuff weekly. We all have different lives. We all struggle with different things. And that has been my guys. And some of those are turning into real long friendships now. Like, you know, we're going over to dinner at their houses and it's different. And it's amazing. And so if you don't have that person, or you don't have those people in your life, or those people you work with, you trust, find a support group, find something and try them out.
Yeah.
So,
And Joe, we had him on the podcast, and he's a special guy.
yes, me and Joe become big, good friends, since that day as well, because I met him through you as well.
Wow. I didn't put that in hope, but this is what life is all about. I mean, it's community, right? And whatever that community looks like to you, but you got to have other people. And coming from someone who, for the longest damn time, felt like I don't need, even though I had people, but like I can do this on my own. Like I don't need that. I don't need this, right? It's a long, lonely way to live, and it's not going to end well. I mean, it truly isn't. Like, and then what I mean by that is relationships. They're gonna die off, right? That's ultimately what happens with that type of thing. You're not going to have relationships with people, like whether it's your kids, you don't have I mean, how many heartbreaking stories do you see where there's like a grown adult, right? Adult children, they don't have any relationship, right?
It's pretty common.
It's common.
It is. And I was in that point as well. So I get it. So yeah, everybody, take that advice. If it's a wife listening right now, push your husband to go find somebody, push him to go out and hang out with his friends, get him out of the house to go do something. And if you're the guy, find somebody, find a support group, reach out to a friend and just start somewhere. I mean, it could be huge for you, and it truly could save your life at that point too. So it's something to think about.
Well, and listen to podcasts like your podcast. Listen to podcasts like our podcast, because we talk about this all the time, and we just talked about it in one of our recent episodes. It's
right.
What you listen to, man. It's what you watch. It's what you take in.
It becomes you.
It does. And if you're going down the rabbit hole of like doom scrolling on Instagram or whatever, right, and all the negativity, I mean, the world that we're in right now, it's a pretty negative space.
Find the positive, find the stuff that makes you happy and brings you up.
Exactly.
Sure. Yeah. So, well, the last thing, every episode, Frankie, and this one makes me nervous because I'm asking Frankie, the guy that I've listened to for 25 years on the radio, this question.
I'm sorry to disappoint you. I'm just going to say that up front.
What question do you have for me?
Well, I want to know, and only because I said I want to talk more about it. You said, and we talked about it before. Is it okay if I bring that up?
Yeah.
The drama, so what was it? And you talked about it before. It was available or is available in like gas stations and what's it called?
So it's called Kratom. It's powerful. And it is one of those things. You can buy it at any gas station. You can buy it at any smoke shop.
And it's called,
it's Kratom.
Kratom.
And it's a leaf from it's an Asian leaf. I don't remember exactly which country it comes from, but it's just ground down and put into either a pill form or into a liquid. Okay. And they combine it sometimes with kava, which is actually a really good one because it is very relaxing. That comes from the islands. Yeah. But what happens when you take the kratom and the kava together is they counteract them because tramadol has a little bit of that energy and that relaxing state.
Yeah.
But then you add the kava on top of it with a higher dose of kratom and you get that relaxing and then you get that euphoric kind of, and they use it all the time for pain relief.
Okay.
Over in Asia, different things. So, I mean, it just like an opioid, but it's highly addictive. It mimics an opioid.
Just like tramadol,
but it's not in the opioid family. It is illegal in a handful of states.
Okay.
But not here. You can buy it absolutely anywhere. And, it's very accessible. You just have to be 18. If you go out of the state of Utah, you don't even have to be 18 to buy it.
Wow.
So, there are states that have that age limit, like nicotine and stuff, but there's other states you can go and you be a 12-year-old kid buying this stuff at a gas station. So it's super scary. And there's just no education on it. There's nobody that's talked about it. So it's just one of the things that needs to be talked about more because, I mean, if you're working in a situation like I was in a situation where I could have been in a dangerous situation taking that because it does affect your mental state. It does affect your motor skills, especially when you get to the point of taking a lot of it. There's been a handful of deaths here in Utah due to that. Because they get to the point like the tramadol, if you think about it, you always feel about the same. But at first you feel really good, right? Really good. So what happens with this is, I want that feel really good. So let's take two of these today. Start stacking. And let's take 3 of these today. And let's take 4 of these today. And then you start stacking it with other things. And it's just a waterfall. And, there's been multiple, most of them have been teens here in Utah.
Really? Diet. Why aren't we, this is amazing. Why aren't we talking about that? Why aren't we hearing it all like in the lead story of the news headlines?
Well, and it's even funny. I mean, you've had Emily Kruba, from Koru on that, show a few times. And she is my therapist, and she is treating multiple men right now, multiple for this specifically.
Wow.
And so it's a problem, and it's not being talked about. So, I mean, that's one of those things that would be awesome to come on to talk about it. And I know Brittany, who is
One of the nurses,
Emily's nurse practitioner, she is willing to come on and talk about the medical effects of what it actually does. So yeah, we'll have to discuss that some more. So, but everybody, I just want to tell Frankie so much thank you. This has been absolutely wonderful. Everybody, you can see the show notes, but it is listen to Frankie and Jess. If you guys have not listened to them, you need to. I've grown up with this guy. He's amazing. Jess is a wonderful, amazing woman as well. They always bring laughter and joy into our house. So check them out on their podcast. They are on Apple and Spotify. Again, share this with your friends and family, because we can't continue to do this without your guys' support. We love doing this. And go check out our website, survivinglifespickles.com. We hope everybody has a great rest of the day. Thank you for tuning in.